everyone! In today's video, I'm going to demonstrate how to crochet this really cute tiny cactus.
For this crochet cactus tutorial, you're going to need the following materials. Sport weight green yarn. You can use any weight yarn, but for this one I chose to use sport weight yarn, and with that I used a 3.25mm hook. If you choose to use bigger yarn, then make sure to size up your hook accordingly. I also used fiberfill stuffing to stuff the inside of the cactus. If you don't have fiberfill, you can use yarn scraps or fabric scraps, or even bean pellets or plastic bags. You'll also need a small 1" by 1" pot for the bottom. If you use bigger yarn, then you'll need to get a bigger pot. I got mine on Etsy, but you can probably find these at a craft store or even a local plant store. You'll also need 2 stitch markers to keep track of your last stitches of every row. These are really important so that you don't accidentally create a triangle instead of rectangle out of your crochet work. I'll show you how to use these later. If you want to add eyes, then you'll also need 2 safety eyes along with their plastic backings. I used 4mm safety eyes, and you can get these on Amazon or Etsy. Alright, let's get started. The first step for this crochet cactus is to first make a slip knot. I have a great video here in case you don't know how to do this already. Insert your hook through the slip knot, and then we're going to work 11 chain stitches. Again, to chain, you're going to move your hook left to right under the working yarn, pull through, and that's 1 chain. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 chains. Next, we're going to work single crochet stitches into every single stitch across, skipping the first chain. This way we'll start building up our first row of single crochet stitches. However, we're going to skip the first chain from the hook. So the loop on the hook directly right here is not a chain stitch. This one is the first chain stitch. So we'll find the second chain stitch from the hook. So this is the first one, and this is the second one. Insert my hook front to back, and then we're going to work a single crochet stitch. So move your hook left to right under the working end of the yarn, twist the hook to the left slightly, pull through, and pull up a loop. Now you should have 2 loops on your hook. To finish off the single crochet stitch, move the hook left to right under the working yarn, pull through, and that is 1 single crochet stitch. Now is a good time to insert a stitch marker into this stitch, since we know it's the first and therefore also the last stitch of this row. Insert your stitch marker by just moving the tip of the pointed end under the V or the top of the single crochet stitch that you just made. So now we'll know for certain that this is the last stitch of this row. So let's continue working single crochet stitches into each of the chain stitches. So don't skip any more chains at this time. So make sure that when you go across, you have 10 total single crochet stitches, because we made 11 chain stitches to start, and then we skipped 1 at the beginning. So this is our last chain stitch. It can be kind of confusing to figure out which is the last stitch because the slip knot is here, but worst case scenario, you'll only be off by 1 stitch, so it's okay if you get it wrong. But the easy way to figure out is just to count how many stitches you've worked already. So I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which means that we only have 1 stitch left. So I'll work my last single crochet stitch, and then we are done with our first row. So to work the next row, what we'll do is we'll do 1 chain off the side of this row, and I'll just do that by yarning over and pulling through. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to turn the work so that we are now working from right to left again. So this is how you work in turned rows in crochet. For the next row, we're actually going to work in the back loop only. So normally when we crochet in turned rows, we would insert a hook under both sides of the V right here. So both this side and the other side. However, because we want our cactus to have like a cute ribbed look like this, we're going to work only in the back loops, and that's going to create the nice ridges for us. So that means that this loop is the front loop and this loop is the back loop. So instead of working through just the front loop, we're going to work only through the back loop. So insert your hook between the two legs of the V and go out through the back. Then, same as always, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through to work your single crochet stitch. And since this is the first stitch of this row, let's add a stitch marker here so we can remember that this is the first and last stitch on this side. So now we have our two stitch markers, so we can never forget which stitch is the last stitch in the row. If you look on this side, you can see that it's a little bit ambiguous whether this is the last stitch or maybe over here, but because you put the stitch marker there already, you'll know that as soon as you get to this stitch with the blue stitch marker, then you have reached the last stitch and it's time to turn around. So replace your stitch markers whenever you get to the end and work your first stitch again so that you can never lose track. From now on, we will just continue working in the back loop only in turn rows of single crochet stitches until we get 14 total rows. So this is our first row. So I'm going to keep working in the back loop only. So I'm going between the V and only catching the back loop and working my single crochet stitch. So now that we've gotten to the end of the row, since we know that this stitch is the last stitch, I'm just going to remove the stitch marker and work into that last stitch. So we've just finished our second row, and so now I will do a chain, turn so that I'm working right to left again, and then work my next stitch in the back loop again. And then once I finish the stitch, I'll replace the stitch marker so that I will continue to not forget. And remember, you can always check to make sure that you have 10 total stitches in your row so that you know you're not accidentally adding any stitches or missing any. So as you can see, I've just finished my third row, so we're going to have to work 14 rows in total. So make sure you keep careful track of how many rows you're working, and I'll meet you back here when I'm done with the 14 rows. Alright, so I finished all 14 rows, and as you can see, it looks like this little rectangle, and I've got my stitch markers on either side like always. And one easy way to count the rows is, as you'll notice, the ridges that we've made from the back loop only kind of alternate. So there's one ridge for every 2 rows. So that means you can count easily by just multiplying 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, which means we have 7 times 2 rows, so that's 14 rows. So this will essentially be the outside of the cactus, and then now we'll seam together the ends, and then we'll cinch together one side to make the top. So pick which side you want to be the outside. They both look kind of the same, so I'm going to do this side. So this side is going to be the outside because we're going to flip it inside out later. What we're going to do now is we're essentially just going to slip stitch into both sides and work into both sides at the same time to join them together. So I'll show you by first inserting my hook into the first stitch of this side and then inserting into the corresponding stitch on the other side. So that'll be the first stitch here. Just like this. So now we'll work one slip stitch. And to do that, we're going to move the hook left to right under the yarn, pull through both layers of the crochet fabric, and also pull through the loop on the hook. So that's one slip stitch. So you should have the same number of stitches on both sides. If you find that you're a little off on one side, that's totally fine. Just skip one or add another one into the same stitch and it'll be fine. So continue working from right to left by inserting hook through both sides, working a slip stitch, and then continuing. Alright, so I've just finished my slip stitches across, and as you can see, I've just joined the two sides so that now they form a cylinder. So our next step is to cut the yarn and finish off, and then we'll seam together this side. So grab your scissors and cut the yarn so that you have about maybe 8 to 10 inches off the side. After you've cut the yarn, pull the loop open so that your tail comes all the way through, and this way your piece will be completely finished off and you won't be able to undo it anymore. The next step is a very basic sewing step, so grab your tapestry needle and thread your yarn through. An easy trick I like to use when threading yarn is I'll pull the yarn over the thin side of the eye of the needle, pull really tight, and then push it through the eye. So now we'll seam close the top, kind of like the top of a beanie, and to do that, we'll just weave the needle in and out of every other row of the cactus. So you can just go in and out. So kind of go in behind a ridge and then come out in front of the ridge, and you can do that all around. Pull the yarn lightly as you go so that it cinches shut. It doesn't really matter exactly where you push the needle, but as close to the top without pulling any yarn threads loose is a really good idea. So now we've kind of gone to the end and we'll just cinch the top closed, and we want to really secure the top, so after making sure that there's no opening, I'll just thread the needle through the top and work the needle through a couple times so that it doesn't really come loose. You can kind of stagger your stitches so that you'll go across at one side, and then you can move the needle and go across again on the other side. So essentially what we want to do is we want to flip the cactus inside out, and you want to not be able to see a gap at the top. So this looks pretty good to me since it's completely closed and I don't see any weird wrinkles or anything like that. This is essentially what the cactus is going to look like. So now that we're basically done, I'm just going to, so this is going to be the inside of the cactus, remember? I'm just going to tie a knot and pull it really tight, and then I'll just cut the yarn. You can weave the end in if you want, but I feel like a knot is going to be good for this project. So next, flip the cactus inside out so that the right side is facing outward. So this is going to be the side that you'll actually see. If you want to insert safety eyes, now is a good time. You can put them in about halfway or a bit closer to the top and just insert them all the way through. And make sure you just snap on those washers at the back so that the eyes don't fall out. And once again, a quick reminder that safety eyes are not child safe because they can fall out or be yanked out. And so if you have small kids, then make sure you use glued on felt eyes or embroider eyes on yourself. So now's the time to start stuffing with your polyfill. So grab some polyfill and pull it apart into small chunks, and then start inserting it piece by piece into the cactus. Start from the bottom and work your way up slowly. Make sure that you get the shape you want by kind of pushing in with your fingers so that it's fully stuffed. So once you feel like the cactus is kind of the level of firmness that you want, you can choose to leave the bottom open, or we can quickly seam the bottom together with a few stitches like this. At this point you can grab your little pot and check to see what the final product looks like. So grab your pot and just plop the cactus inside with the top sticking out, and that is your final project. So at this point you can choose to super glue or hot glue it inside so that it doesn't come out, but that's totally up to you. You can just leave it like that if you want as well. So I'm just going to quickly seam the bottom shut by just threading the needle like this and then seaming across a couple times. So I'll just go through the next stitch and make sure the stuffing all stays inside and go right across. And then I'll just go adjacent to it and go across again. So no one will really see this part, so it's totally fine if it's a little messy like this, and that's totally fine. So then I just tie a knot or bury the tail, whichever you prefer. And if you want to embroider a little mouth onto your amigurumi, you can follow this video right here. And that'll walk you through the steps to embroidering a little cute mouth. So here we are. You're all done with your cactus. And if you want the cactus to be a bit taller, you can work more stitches in each row. But here you are. Congratulations on finishing, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.